Hello everyone, welcome back to FUNSTON TV. Today I'm sharing with you a very traditional pho recipe. For us Vietnamese people, we always get the question of how to make pho and is there a specific way to do it rather than everything else you see online? And the answer is yes. I went over a lot of recipes and researched online, and there's not one really recipe that can replicate this pho that I'm about to show you, and this for me, I think, is the authentic, best way to get the ultimate pho. It's delicious, it's healthy, it's much better than what you'll find in stores, and best of all, you can probably find all the ingredients and do this at home. It does require a lot of ingredients, but chances are you'll enjoy it very much at the end. To make pho, the steps aren't complicated and it's not difficult. And there's a few key steps that I'll show you to achieve that perfect pho. It's just very time consuming, and no, there's no shortcuts to making pho. It takes a lot of hours. You'll just have to babysit your pot while you're at it, but in the end, it'll be perfect. Okay, now let me walk you through the steps. First off, you'll need about 2 kilos of beef bones. You can use spine or tail or a combination of both, and you want to make sure you clean them first. So just rinse them briefly under water. After that, you're going to fill a pot with water. You're gonna let it come to a boil and then throw your beef bones in it. Then you'll let them boil in there for about 10 minutes. During that step, you'll see there'll be a lot of impurities, foam, and scum coming to the top, and that's exactly what we want to get rid of by boiling them. If you skip the step and you put the bones directly in your soup broth, then your broth will most likely become cloudy, and that's not what you want. Vietnamese people always judge a good pho on whether or not the broth is clear and tasty. So after you've boiled your bones for about 10 minutes, you're gonna throw out all that water and you're gonna rinse your bones thoroughly under cold water. Then you want to rinse out your pot as well and fill it with clean water. Put it back on the stove. Bring it to a boil again, and then drop your parboiled bones back in that clean water. At that point, you also want to add a bunch of cilantro stems that have been thoroughly cleaned, and you can add that to the broth as well with the bones. At this point, you want to boil everything for a minimum of 6 hours. So once your broth comes to a boil, you bring down the fire to medium. Do not cover it and let it simmer for at least 6 hours. During that process, every half an hour or hour or so, you should come to your pot and see if there's scum and impurities that formed on top of the broth. And if so, you want to skim them out and throw them away. Don't be scared if you see a lot of fat floating bits around. You really want to keep them in there to maximize the flavor of your broth. After a minimum of 6 hours of boiling, you want to get your other meats ready. I'm using about 1 kilo of beef flank, 1 kilo of beef brisket, and then about 1 kilo of beef sirloin as well. You want to repeat the same process you did with the bones, but this time with the flank and the brisket. So you want to bring a pot to a boil. You're going to drop the meats in the boiling water and let it boil for about 10 minutes. We want to get rid of, again, all the impurities in the meat. At that point, you're gonna throw out all that water, rinse your meat under cold water, and put those pieces of meat into your soup broth. So you also want to take out your bones at this point. They've done their job. However, if you want to enhance the flavor of your broth even more, feel free to take out the bone marrow from the bones and then taking the bones out. You may be afraid that this is a lot of fat for a broth, but trust me, this is the best way to get the flavor for your pho. And to the broth, you're gonna add your seasoning. Now for the seasoning, it's very important that you put them in the oven and grill them slightly so that they become very fragrant, so that when you put them in the broth, your broth will become very fragrant and very delicious. So you wanna add 1 yellow onion, 1 full ginger root, about 5 cloves, 10 star anise, 1 cinnamon stick, 1 nutmeg, and about half a cup of coriander seeds. You want to put all these seasonings in the oven at about 400 degrees and let them grill for about 10 to 15 minutes until you see your onion and your ginger start becoming caramelized. At that point, you want to add your onion and your ginger directly in your broth. As far as all your other seasonings, you want to put them in a cheesecloth and form a little pouch and put that in your soup broth. To that, you'll also add about 1/3 of a cup of rock sugar. Rock sugar is actually just lumps of cane sugar, and it's much more fragrant and it tastes better than normal white sugar, so that's why we're using this in pho. And also about 9 teaspoons of salt. So once everything is in there, you want to let everything simmer for about an hour and a half. Again, during this process, if you see scum or impurities forming at the top, don't be afraid to skim them out. And also, at this point, you can start fishing out also the coriander stems from your broth. If you see that your water becomes too low, you can always add some more water, but not too much because you want to keep the richness of your broth. I'm using a pot that's about 12 liters. I filled it to the brim the first time, and after the initial 6 hours of simmering, it went down to about 10 liters, so it's a dramatic drop in the water level. So I added just a bit of water, and also after the second time we simmered for about an hour and a half, I also added a bit of water to keep the water level to always about 10 liters. So after that, you're gonna add your last seasoning, about 8 to 9 tablespoons of MSG. But if you prefer your broth to be healthier and not add this, then feel free to leave it out. But most of the restaurant and most of the recipes always include this. And to that, you're also gonna add about 1/4 cup of fish sauce. Once you've done your last seasoning, you're gonna let everything simmer for an additional 30 minutes. And at that point, you can do a tasting of your broth and adjust it to your liking. Now for serving, I'm using fresh rice noodles, which take about 5 to 10 seconds in boiling water to be ready. And I really prefer them because the texture always comes out right. So just measure out how much rice noodles is needed for each bowl and boil your rice noodles. On top of that, you're gonna add a few slices of sliced beef sirloin, and this is gonna be our rare meat. And then at this point, you want to take out all the meat from your broth. Run it under some cool water so it stops the cooking. And then on a cutting board, you want to cut your meat in really thin slices, or as thin as you can. You can add the number of slices you want of those cooked meats in each bowl. You're going to take out the onions, the ginger, and your pouch of seasoning from the broth. And at this point, we're ready to eat, so you can just spoon your broth into the prepared bowls. And for garnishes, you're going to use thin slices of yellow onion, chopped up cilantro with chopped up green onions. And on the side, it's always nice to have a plate of fresh herbs, so we always use lime, Thai basil, water mint, and you can also use bean sprouts. And the best drink to go with pho is a Vietnamese iced coffee. Now, if you don't have the device to make Vietnamese coffee at home, it doesn't matter because we found a recipe that can almost create the same taste. We're using instant espresso powder and we make it really concentrated. And to that, you add about 2 teaspoons of condensed milk. Make sure everything is very well dissolved and just pour everything over a tall glass with ice. So there you have it, a perfectly home-cooked, healthy pho that will please everybody. Perfect lunch or dinner, and you can invite anybody over and everybody will think that you ordered this from a restaurant. I'm sure everybody will love this and so will you, so please give it a try. So here are the top tips to making your pho perfect. Remember to always parboil your bones and your meat prior to putting them in your soup broth. You should always grill your seasonings before putting it into your broth. And remember to always skim the top of your broth for any impurities or scum to make the clearest broth. Now this is one of our favorite recipes. We've grown up with this and I still love to eat it today. Let me know down below what are your favorite recipes and what is your favorite Vietnamese dish. I'm always interested in finding out. And that's it for now. I hope you enjoyed this video and I'll see you next time. Bye. And dump your bones back in. Can I say dump? I'm so awkward. Dump that. I always say dump. It's hard doing food stuff.